If you have it and you struggle with it, just recognize that. Your brain's different, and that's okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my channel, Janine Van Stee, ADHD Life Coach. That's me. I'm Janine Van Stee. Today, I want to delve into what to some people is a fairly touchy topic, and that's the topic of brain development and ADHD. I want to start with the fact that ADHD and intelligence are in no way connected to each other. As a matter of fact, ADHD presents itself pretty evenly across the board in IQ. So I just wanted to be clear when we have this topic today, I'm not talking about intelligence, but I am talking about brain differences and delays that are associated with ADHD. Before we begin, I need to note the fact that science is still working on all of this. I'm reporting what is the most recent research in this area. Who knows what it'll say in 20 years, but this is what they're finding out as they're doing more research in ADHD, because really they weren't looking at it all that closely until fairly recently. But they've learned a lot. And there are a lot of really strong theories that are starting to be predominantly accepted across the medical field. But today I want to talk about some of the differences of the ADHD brain from a neurotypical brain and explain why those things are attached to some of the behaviors that we see in people with ADHD. So research is finding that the brain of a child with ADHD is generally smaller than that of a person who doesn't have ADHD. Remember what we said before, has nothing to do with intelligence, but everything to do with executive function, which we will talk about. But first I want to talk about the structure of the brain. There are 4 areas of the brain that are smaller in general in an ADHD brain and develop more slowly. Now I want to emphasize too that as you reach adulthood, the size difference is much less between a typical and a neurodivergent brain. So the 4 areas are the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the cerebellum. These areas control what we call executive function. Executive functions include attention, organization, emotional regulation, working memory, and inhibition control. That list says a lot for itself. These are all things that are delayed in development in a person with ADHD, as our brains are developing more slowly. So when you're talking to your 16-year-old kid who has ADHD and they're exhibiting executive functions of those of a 13-year-old, there may be a reason for that. And most of that is happening in the prefrontal cortex. So oftentimes when we think of somebody with ADHD, we think of the hyperactivity component of that. That is a lot of where the cerebellum comes in, because the cerebellum controls that movement regulation. So the tapping, the fidgeting, the not being able to sit still, those things are all controlled by the cerebellum, and it's delayed. So when you have a kid that you're expecting to sit in his chair at the age of 12, let's say, and everybody else seems to be doing okay, but this kid can't stop moving, his cerebellum has not probably developed far enough yet for him to be able to regulate those movements. The hippocampus and the amygdala, I love those words. They're such cool words to say, hippocampus and amygdala. They control memory, emotion, and behavior regulation. So if you're seeing a trend here with your ADHD child seeming to act immature, there's a reason for that. Their brain has not developed to that of the same point as their peers. So you can be a really intelligent kid who can't sit still. Let's talk about adults now. So your frontal lobe, your prefrontal cortex, doesn't finish developing in a neurotypical person until you're about 25, maybe even as late as 30. Yeah, you're catching on, right? So what happens with us? we're hitting college and we're still feeling like teenagers, executive function wise and in many other ways. And we're not coping very well. Well, it's because we're a little delayed. And the fact is, most college kids are still, developing their prefrontal cortex. But as they're coming out of college and getting jobs and hitting 25 and so forth, they're usually pretty fully developed. People with ADHD, here's the bad news. People with ADHD, their prefrontal cortex oftentimes doesn't develop until they're 30, 35, even 40. So our brains continue to develop during that whole time where we're looking at our peers and we're thinking, why is it so easy for them? Why do they seem like they have their crap together? It's possible you're just not ready yet. Does that mean we grow out of our ADHD? I don't know that you grow out of your ADHD, but a lot of times when people hit that stage where they have fully developed brain, whatever age it is, they have some years of not so bad symptoms. But then there are other things that happen in life, like for women, menopause, all kinds of great things that then can trigger our ADHD symptoms and make them worse again. Because it's not just brain development, we're also having chemical issues and network issues, all topics for other videos. I'm hoping that today you'll take away that although an ADHD brain does develop more slowly, and so we are a little delayed in a lot of ways, especially that prefrontal cortex that seems to take forever to kick in, it has nothing to do with how smart we are. We're very intelligent people. Many of us are extremely intelligent people, and a lot of us are extremely creative and talented people. And like us, our brains, well, they tend to not be as motivated to move as quickly as everybody else's. With that, remember, give yourself grace. It is a disorder. And if you have it and you struggle with it, just recognize that. Your brain's different, and that's okay. I hope you learned something new today, and I hope you remember that we're all unique and we're all special. And if you like my content and you want to hear more, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.